The day before I left Maine for my 10-day work trip, I was scrambling around the homestead like my feet were on fire, doing everything I could to accomplish everything on my pre-trip to-do list. I didn't manage to get everything done, but one thing I managed to elevate in importance, just before going to bed, later than I should have for a 5 a.m. flight, was to plant some seeds with the intention of having them ready to move forward when I returned. That includes cold-hardy crops like kale, lettuce, broccoli, and beets for the fall. Most of those seedlings need to be pricked out and potted up, but the beets can go directly in the ground. The question is, where? I planted carrots around the middle of July, and I'm sorry to say they didn't germinate well. I think the issue was inconsistent moisture while the seeds were germinating. We've since had some rain, and more of them have germinated. If this were earlier in the season, that would be fine, because then I would have the good fortune of having a succession of carrot harvests without having done the work of succession planting. But it's late in the season, which means those late to germinate carrots are not likely to amount to much. Even with the late germinators, I have a lot of blank space in the carrot rows. I don't like blank space any more than nature, so I'm going to fill it by interplanting the beets. These particular beets are good for the roots, as opposed to greens, which nobody in my family but me seems to like. Everyone can get behind beet root though, so I focus on that. Since these are going into the ground so late, they wouldn't normally have time to produce roots large enough to bother with. But I have the advantage of a mobile hoop house that will come over this plot before the worst of late fall arrives. Before I can get new crops in the ground, I need to make some space. This kale has gone crazy, and I can't even access the walking path. Also, there are some weeds in the carrot row that need to come out before I put in the beets. Even though Emily did a great job watering all of the seedlings while I was away, they were on the south side of our deck, and it's pretty hot over there. They're looking a little bit dry, and even though it's evening and they'll have all night in the cool weather to get acclimated to the garden, I want to make sure they're good and wet before I disturb them, taking them out of their cells and plunging them into the earth. This board just acts as a straight edge. It's nothing fancy. I just want to make sure I'm putting the beetroot in line with the small carrot plants. That way, if weeds do germinate again, like the ones I'm picking out here, I'll still be able to get a cultivation tool down between the rows of carrots and beets, as opposed to just randomly sticking the beets in wherever.